All right, so I did a video sort of like this last year where it was basically holiday recommendation reads, so traveling recommendations. Basically, I had winter books, quick reads for planes, and some holiday reads. So I will have that link down below, and I might have some overlap with that recommendation video, but this one is my attempt at winter read recommendations. And I asked Ryan for help, and Ryan went, "What does that mean?" Which, fair, what does it mean to be a winter read? And so I have a couple of things here. I have books Ryan recommended that I've also read, and I think the thing was that there was snow, okay? And then other ones that I think really are atmospherically, seasonally set in winter. And then I just have some cozy fantasy reads that I really think are great to read with a blanket next to a pillow when you have a lot of time to sink into a book, since I know some of us are lucky enough to have some time off in the winter. Not a lot of time, but when, there is time off to be had, why not snuggle up with a thick fantasy book? So that's the idea. So let's start with Ryan's recommendations, because really that's why everyone's here, right? The first one, I laughed, but I'm putting it on the list because I think it's funny, and that's The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. So I'm pretty sure this book takes place on a planet called Winter, and it's very cold, but it has nothing to do with like our winter. It's a different planet. It's not like there are even seasons really here. From what I can remember, it's been like 4 years since I've read that book, so I'm fuzzy on some aspects. But I can tell you it has a pretty dry, clinical writing style at times. So our main character, we have like two main characters, which Ryan had a way funnier synopsis for this, and I couldn't get him to do this for the video, and I'm tempted to make a TikTok just to have Ryan post synopses of books because it was so funny. But we have a character from outer space who's on this planet basically kind of seeing if they're ready to join this bigger galactic, empire is the wrong word, but that type of larger organization. And so he's basically interacting with them kind of as an ambassador diplomat. And then our other main character is someone who, as Ryan put it, committed some light treason. Okay? And what's really interesting about the culture of this planet is that nobody usually has a gender. They are genderless until they are procreating, and then they can pick or choose which sex to be. They are never restricted to one or the other. It's just when they are ready to have a kid, that's what they choose to do. There are some members who choose to stay in that form. It is not the norm, though, and it's kind of taboo. So that's an interesting part of this world and something the ambassador is always trying to wrap their head around. But basically, there's this political story and intrigue, both with the higher, can we join the Galactic Empire thing, but also just on the planet, there's, political drama that our ambassador and other main character are kind of wrapped up in. But you also discuss things, about relationships and love, and it's one of those books that I enjoyed when I read 4 years ago, and I want to read again in 20 years, because I feel like a lot of the themes, I need a little more life experience to connect to. So I liked it, Ryan liked it, the planet's called Winter. So it's a winter read by that definition. Next up is Misery by Stephen King. We actually did a joint review for this last year, so I will link that, and you can see Ryan and I talk spoiler-free and spoiler-filled about this book. Ryan likes it more than me. I like it well enough. The reason why it's on this list is that the plot device used is that there was a snowstorm, and that is how our main character got into this situation, where he's an author, and he drove when he shouldn't have into a snowstorm, got into an accident, and when he wakes up, who is helping him but his biggest fan, and his biggest fan is not okay. I think her name's Annie, and she is not okay. So it kind of is a slow burn, suspenseful thriller, and it also gives you some insight into this character's authorial eye, which I thought was really interesting. But both characters are extremely unlikable, and it takes a while, I think, for the suspense to really heat up. So for so short of a book, and for it being a thriller, I thought it was paced very oddly, and has your classic, Stephen King use of derogatory terms just for, shock effect. It was just interesting. So we both had a reasonable time reading it, and we both did read it in December of last year. So winter read on all fronts. Really the definition of seasonal reads. I should stop trying to make these recommendation videos. I'm no idea what I'm doing. But this next one's easy. It's the Winter Night Trilogy by Catherine Arden. I have a whole review for this series. It's called the Winter Night Trilogy. That is why it's a winter read. It is Russia in the 14th century. That is what it's based off, the historical history of that. You kind of follow the folktale of the pagan religions there, but also you see the Christian religion and how that can exist in harmony and what happens when one is too strong. There is the idea of chaos versus order. That's a big theme. And then our main character, Vasya, is also just perpetually trying to find the balance within herself. Not only in religion, but in her role in her family, but in her role in the universe. I really love it as a complete work, but I also think the first book, The Bear and the Nightingale, works as a standalone wonderfully. And yes, you should be reading it when there is a crackling fireplace nearby, or you have headphones on and you're pretending there's a crackling fireplace. Like, those are the vibes. Very few books make me feel as cold as this book does. So if you want to feel cold, if you're not in a place that feels cold, but all the movies are telling you it should be a white Christmas or something, get that. Similarly, the next two books also make me feel incredibly cold. Migrations, this is one I read this year. You are going from the Arctic to the Antarctic, and you are on the Atlantic Ocean, and it's just always cold and windy and rainy when it's not snowy and windy and just like frostbite. Like the elements of weather are brutally chilly. I don't know seasonally when it takes place. It's near future pseudo-dystopia, so actually I think there's climate change happening. It's the global warming. So I think things aren't actually as cold as they should be. But the locations we are at are very cold, and you follow Franny while she follows this bird's migration from the Arctic to the Antarctic, and you learn about her past and why she's on this journey, and not everything is as it seems, and I will leave it at that, and I really liked it. Like, it's been a couple months since I read it, and it sticks with me, and it's beautifully written, and like, it's got that perfect amount of, you know, something's not right. Like, you're not surprised that something's not right. But at the same time, you don't know exactly what's not right, and that's just really like a nice thread to keep you going along. And yeah, really great. And then I think this probably was on the list last year, maybe. I mean, I know for sure Winter Night was, but this is The Great Alone. This is the only Kristen Hanna I have read, and I loved it. You spend the book following a family that basically, I don't remember if it's Washington or California, but they moved from the West Coast United States to Alaska because their father, who suffers from PTSD from the Vietnam War, wants to move there. So this takes place in the 70s, so that's the type of historical fiction period. So if you want a historical fiction, that's not World War II. This is not World War II. And you follow this girl when she's a kid and also when she's a teenager and a little bit young adult in Alaska. And Alaska is a very different place to live during the summer versus the winter. And actually the summer is basically all preparing for the winter. And the winter itself actually brings out the darker side of her father. And the winter is just, it's a character. Alaska's a character. The season is a character. It's an important part of the story. It's just really good. And this is actually reminding me of a book that I didn't put on the list, and I'm forgetting its name. So I'm going to put it here. This was the first book I read in 2020, and I loved it, even though I can't remember its name right now. I think, it's Innocence. Okay, you guys have seen it for a minute, but it's The Innocence. And this story also is about survival in the winter, which I loved reading in January. And you have these orphaned brother-sister pair in this cove in Canada, and this is kind of 1700s historical fiction time period, and they always are preparing in the summer, fishing, salting, to trade with this other boat to get supplies so that they can survive the winter, which is always cold and horrible. And I love survival stories like that, and again, a book that made me feel cold, brittly cold. And yeah, I will say that there are conversations and topics that are brought up that will make certain people feel uncomfortable. I will say it's kind of a take on Adam and Eve-ish. I don't know. Just take that as you will. I don't want to spoil anything, but if you are assuming something based off what I've said, you're right. And, if that's something that's going to bother you, just know that going in. And if you want me to be less vague, ask me in the comments and I'll tell you. But I thought it was a beautiful story, and I loved the setting. similarly to The Great Alone, and just the exploration of survival on different fronts, both emotionally and physically and everything like that. The last one I'll mention in this section is The Starless Sea, which takes place in the winter. It takes place over winter break on a college campus in Vermont, which is something I remembered while reading it in like March or April. It doesn't actually really matter what time of year this book takes place, though. This is a timeless book. It's not one of my favorites, but it has its audience. So if anything I say intrigues you, you should for sure pick it up. So things you should know about The Starless Sea is that you just gotta go with the journey. And the ending is not your destination. I mean, it has an ending, and your thoughts on the ending are going to vary. But you just have to go with it. And this is a story that has stories within stories. So our character, Zachary, he stumbles upon a book that suddenly has a story that he remembered as a kid, but he never told anybody about, where he, like, saw a door but never went through. He's like, how does this book have a story from my life in it? Then he gets obsessed with this book. And in the process, we learn about other stories that are in that book, and we learn about the Starless Sea, this kind of underground library of stories. The thematicness of storytelling and the love of stories is the strongest part of this book. It's the atmosphere and the love of storytelling that's the glue for this tome of a novel. The actual mystery plot arc and the intrigue and where we're going, it's a little bit meandery. It's not, like I said, it's about the journey. It's not about getting to the destination. I will say, if you're someone who likes breadcrumbs, there are lots of them. I could not find a satisfying puzzle to put together with my breadcrumbs, but some people have, so that's one thing. But I do think that if you're someone who's more okay with open endings, this is more your thing. And also, if you liked the 10,000 Doors of January, this is pretty similar, which I didn't put that on my list, even though I could, because the main character's name is January, and that's a winter month where I live. So maybe I just should have retroactively done that, but I don't remember it taking place in winter. And I don't think I read it in winter, so I don't associate it with the season. But 10,000 Doors of January, if you liked The Starless Sea, I think you'd like that. So take that. If you like this, try that quick mini-sode in this YouTube video. And the next three are going to be my cozy fantasy reads, starting with my love, Elantris. I have reread Elantris in the winter so many times. I think the last time, I think I read it in Boston once over the winter, but a time that I really remember of a reread is my mom was making us repaint the entire downstairs, which painting one room, fun. Painting an entire downstairs, torture. Absolute torture. My back, my feet, my shoulders, I was just pain. So every night, all I could do was just lay in my bed, and I had Elantris, so I was just rereading Elantris, and it was amazing. It was so good. It was so cozy because I was so exhausted, and I think it's one of those nice, like, quiet political fantasies that's just fun to get immersed in that drama. And there is, like, a little romance in it that I really enjoy. The one character people tend to not like as much is really morally gray, sort of antagonistic force. But I like him more and more on reread. But the premise of this story is Elantris used to be this beautiful city of knowledge and magic and progress. And then one day that all went away. And suddenly the people who were blessed with these powers kind of became almost zombie-like. Like, they're not mindless zombies, but they are these undead creatures who never change but are stuck in this state of decay. And so is the city itself. And the magic is no longer working the way it's supposed to. That's the premise of this city, and we follow a character who ends up in Elantris because this curse still takes people. It used to be a blessing that randomly took people at night, but this blessing curse still happens, so one of our characters ends up in the city. Another one is a princess who was supposed to marry that character, and so she shows up and her husband is dead. But she's still stuck in this marriage contract, so she has to politically maneuver this new country where she doesn't fit in. I love Sarene. Sarene's everything. And then the character, like I said, that most people don't love is Hrathen, who is a priest who is coming to save this country, because if he does not succeed, his nation will come and invade. So he sees himself as their savior, and he needs to force everyone to convert to his religion. So I love Elantris. It is the most different of the Sanderson works, not only because it's one of the earliest ones, but because it is not high action or magic. Like, the magic system is really cool, and I love it, but it's not like Allomancy or anything like that. It's not as flashy. So the next one, though, I know, we're all gonna be shocked. But again, it wasn't on the Goodreads Choice Awards, so I'm just gonna keep talking about it. The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick. I actually read this in January of last year, and I'm reading it in November of this year, and I'm going to read The Liar's Knot in December. Can confirm this is a winter series for me. Seasonally, it's Venetian. It doesn't really have seasons. It gets wet and cold, but it doesn't really have snow. But in terms of cozy ballroom politics fantasy, yes. All of those things. It's just you watch these characters politically maneuver and scheme, and literally there are ballroom scenes. I am obsessed with the ballroom scenes. And if you didn't know, M.A. Carrick are two authors. One is Marie Brennan, so if you like A Natural History of Dragons, you should probably check this out. And the other one is Alec Helm, who I haven't read any of their other works, but I'm interested. And icing on the cake, this story was inspired by an RPG campaign they have been doing together, and they just made this trilogy up, which is fantastic. And the world itself has 2 to 3 different types of magic. You kind of have these tarot card sort of prophecy type things, and then you have star charts, and you have a dream world. It's so cool. I'm so excited to reread it next week. It's going to be fantastic. And then the last one I'll recommend is a Robin Hobb, and I'm just going to recommend Farseer, because I do actually think that you can read Live Ship, my series over here, any time of year, but it's a little more summery because you got pirates and water stuff. But Farseer, it feels winter to me. It feels like a fall winter series. I did read it in the fall when I first read it, but especially with the castles and how the fires are started, it's that cozy type of classic fantasy to pick up and read. So of a classic fantasy, and by classic I mean the 90s, I would pick that one up. I feel like I don't need to talk too much about what it's about, but it's about Fitz. And he's an orphaned bastard child who basically gets trained to be an assassin to be useful for the royal family that he's in. He happens to have magical abilities that are both useful and taboo, and he makes interesting decisions. And like everyone says with Robin Hobb stuff, it's meant to evoke emotion. It has some very tragic scenes, but it's also not so tragic that it crushes you, I feel. Some people might disagree. It's just Fitz gets put through a lot. Don't think good things are going to happen to Fitz. It's not in the cards. So let me know what you think a winter read is, because I have no clue. I tried my best. Guys. Hopefully any of these sound interesting to you and you got some recommendations from this. Hopefully you're having a good holiday week if you are in the United States and you celebrate Thanksgiving. And if not, hopefully you're getting pumped for any holiday that you celebrate in December. I love this time of year. I love it so much. I wish I didn't have a thesis staring at me. It would be ideal. And leaving an emoji, leave snowflake. I feel like snowflake's the basic one. If you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.